All right. What's up, guys? Bill Kelly here, your Philadelphia real estate coach. And today I have the honor of sitting down actually with my coach from Keller Williams MAPS Coaching, Matt Koller, somebody who coaches coaches who coach people, but somebody who is not just teaching the stuff, but really coaching, in my opinion, at the highest level in the real estate industry. So, Matt, welcome. Give us a 60-second overview. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome to be here. So, like Bill said, I'm a MAPS coach for productivity coaches. So, I help people who are hired to really provide the training and guidance for agents, both when they first come into the industry, as well as if they just experience a slowdown in their business. It's not just for new agents. It's okay to say, hey, my plan wasn't working exactly the way I thought it was going to, and it doesn't hurt to have a second set of eyes on it. So I've been doing that since 2018. I've been in the productivity coaching world since 2015 or 2014. So it's been quite a while, and I would say that I've really studied the art and science of what it takes to get agents into production. It's fascinating what patterns show up.
Well, we're definitely going to dive into that today. So, you and I, well, maybe you, maybe both of us, we discovered a long time ago success in real estate comes down to three things. Can you name those three things in specific order?
I think you're referencing the things that get in the way of success. Is that what you're mentioning there?
I am.
The three types of obstacles?
The three obstacles. Yep.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't credit who this ultimately came from. I picked this up from one of my mentors, great friend of mine, MAPS coach John Vandergenst. And he said that really, when it comes to obstacles, things that get in the way of production, it really breaks down to one of three things. First thing is activities. And it really goes in this order. It starts with activities, right? Is the agent doing consistent activities? Doing enough activities to create the result, right? And we often find with agents it's kind of an all or nothing situation. They're either busting their butts every day in lead generation and they're not getting the results they expect, and that means there's an adjustment that we need to make, or there's very little activity, right? Four contacts over the course of a week, not enough to make a great impact. And so we start with activities just to diagnose, is the action occurring, right? Then we get into the second type of obstacle, which is skill set, right? And that comes down to, was the agent capable of doing what it is that they needed to do? Were they capable of explaining the buyer representation process in order to get a buyer representation agreement signed, right? Were they able to do a listing presentation, that type of thing? And for coaches, I think a good place to start is, do they have a track record of doing it, right? When you're interacting with an agent, if their goal is to take a listing and they've taken a listing before, okay, then there might be a skill set adjustment or there might be something there. If their goal is to take 5 listings and they've never taken a listing in their career, right, and their goal is to take 5 listings in a week, there might be unrealistic expectations there, right?
Yeah.
And then the third type of obstacle is mindset, right? And it would be foolish of us to assume that all of these things are separate. They all interconnect, they all blend. We all have mixes of skill set, mindset, obstacles, activities. I mean, all of these things, there's no black and white to any of this. But it really gets
Yeah.
into the mindset. What limiting beliefs are holding us back? Where might we have a values conflict where we want things that pull against each other? Those types of things.
Yeah. So, why do you think it's in that specific order?
Well, as a coach, I think it's really easy to start barking up the wrong tree, right? There's a lot of times. I mean, we've all been there as leaders, whether you're a coach, a rainmaker, maybe you run an office, something like that. We've all gotten into a situation where we think we know the problem, right? And we jump into fix it mode. And as one of my favorite authors of all time says, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but Keith Cunningham in the book The Road Less Stupid says, you're enthusiastically running in the wrong direction. Everything starts, if you think about real estate, the process of real estate is fairly linear, right? In order to have a closing, you have to go under contract. In order to go under contract, you have to have a listing or a buyer that agrees to work with you. In order for that to occur, you have to have a buyer representation or listing buyer consultation or a listing appointment, right? It's all linearly. So if you look at the course of an agent's week, we can determine what activities were or were not occurring. Now, identifying whether the activity did or did not occur does not explain why the activity did or did not occur. It's our job as a coach, right, to dive in with the client in a collaborative process to identify what might have caused that why, what might have caused that issue.
Yeah. So I kind of want to break down each of those bullet points, the activity, the skill, and the mindset. I'm going to talk about activity first because it comes first. So I think what I see is many agents default early on to activity as checking off like a couple boxes. It's the getting the business card and the infamous headshot that nobody cares about and all those things. They identify that as activity. So what would let's start here. What would you like? I know the answer, but what would you identify activity early on?
Bill, just because I like to do this to you, I'm going to flip it back to you. What do you think is the number one job of a real estate agent?
The number one job of a real estate agent, especially a brand new agent, their only job is to find their first deal and somebody that wants to buy or sell, motivated people that are looking to buy or sell real estate. So when I coach and train agents, I don't really, not saying I don't care about the headshot and all those things, they'll come with time. Literally, if I was a brand new agent, I would, the minute that license, you get that email from the state that says, congratulations, it's active. I'm not waiting for a headshot. I'm not waiting for a business card. I am picking up the phone and I am calling every single person that I know that I'm in real estate. And so sphere of influence, I would be doing my first open house literally as soon as I can click in the MLS and I'm able to schedule that. Like I defined conversations. I mean, that to me, that's the most important thing. I'm sure you would agree.
Absolutely, right? Just to phrase it slightly differently, but in the same vein, it's to develop relationships, right? We develop relationships with our community, and it's from those relationships where opportunities spring, right? It is universally true that people like to work with people that they know, like, and trust, right? If we can do the hard part of establishing the know, like, and trust before they have a real estate need, we're already way ahead of the game, right? So the activity is how many relationships can you develop? How much value can you provide to your community, right? Value in terms of information, in terms of helping them make better decisions when it comes to real estate, right? We're not just here at the purchase, we're not just here at the sale, right? I think we have an opportunity. Sorry, I'm going to get on a soapbox here for a second, but I think
Please.
we have an opportunity to elevate the real estate business, right? If you want to make a major decision in your life and you have a financial advisor, you're going to call your financial advisor because that's your financial guy or gal. Don't mean to be sexist, right? That's your go-to, right? That's your finance person. You're going to go to them with anything that relates to finance, right? I think a lot of people might have an insurance person, right? Somebody who's a broker, works with different companies who can help provide an unbiased opinion on what the best decisions would be based on what they want to accomplish when it comes to insurance. Why aren't we the real estate resource for our community, right? We don't just live in our home when we purchase it. We don't just live in our home when we sell it. We live in our home throughout the duration of owning it. So anyway, sorry, get off on a
Yeah.
bit of a tangent there, but that's
No.
the activity is develop relationships.
Absolutely. So we're developing relationships, we're lead generating, prospecting, whatever you want to call it. We're trying to find those people. You and I have spent a lot of time over the years really focused on the pipeline. I am doing another, in fact, by the time this video comes out, you should already see my pipeline video. I'm talking about it, but spend a couple minutes, talking about the importance of the pipeline and why that's so important to track and really why are agents not why are they not doing it?
Bill, before I get into that, I'm going to flip it on you for a second. Okay, you've worked with a lot of brand new agents, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot of those agents dealing with different forms of anxiety or stress over their real estate career, right? What would you say are some things that stress them out the most?
Uh, Usually it comes down to not making money in real estate. I would say that's probably no income is probably one of the biggest stressors, but really, we help our agents. I mean, if they want to close, first we have to determine what is your goal. Because if you don't have a goal, you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and kind of hoping something sticks. That's not a strategy. So, day one, we want to identify A, how many houses do you want to sell? Well, let's start there. And why is that goal so important to you? Once we have that established, it's a very, very easy math that we just break down. You want to close 10 homes your first year in real estate. Great. Now let's now let's break it down. For every
So I'm gonna stop you there for a second.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop you there for a second, right? So a lot of agents they'll stop at the goal, right? For a lot of agents, it's I want to do 10 million in volume or whatever that is. But hopefully, agents recognize that volume is a vanity stat and it's really about units because that's what
yep,
you can business plan around, right?
yep.
But anyway, let's say they say I want to do 12 units this year. Great, kind of stops there, right? And then I don't know if you've ever been, if you ever had this experience like me, but you speak with somebody who's within their first couple of months of real estate, and you ask them, "Hey, how's it going?" Right? A lot of times they'll say, "It's not great."
Right.
Why not? I
Or
didn't have a closing this week.
or it's going great.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Right? I like to use an example of, you're in Philadelphia. Let's say I asked you to drive from Philadelphia to Austin, Texas. Could you do it?
Be a far drive, but absolutely.
Absolutely. Now let's say you couldn't look at your gas gauge. What would that experience be like?
Mystery.
Yeah. Let's say you can't track you don't have a gas gauge and you can't track your mileage to do the math to figure out when the next time you fill up, right? You're going out there blind. What does that feel like?
Yeah, I was actually, as you're saying that, I was thinking about driving like this. Might as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, right? One of the biggest stressors that I hear with new agents is they look up at the end of the week and they say, "Did I make an impact?" Right? A lot of agents they'll measure their impact based off of did I have a closing this week? Did I sign a listing? Right? Did I do something big? And the thing is those big things that they're measuring success, we consider those generally lag measures. These are things that show up based off of the work that was done previously, right? There's nothing to celebrate in having a closing this month. I mean, there's plenty to celebrate, but there isn't in terms of activities because that was ultimately what you did based in January, February, right? So, in order to alleviate a lot of that anxiety that can come with running a real estate business, we have to have a healthy measure. Are we there? Can we get there, right? Anybody who's ever trained for a marathon knows you don't go from never running to out there to run full marathon, right? You build
Yeah.
up to it. And so that's why for me, measuring the pipeline is one of the most accurate things that we can do in terms of measuring did our business move forward or not.
Yeah, so let's look at the let's look at the pipeline math because it's actually not as complex as agents make it or even think that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to preface what we're going to share here. This is not a hard and fast rule for every single agent, right? Every single agent has a number that is unique to them. The challenge is when a lot of agents are new and they don't have enough track record of experience, there's no way to calculate with any type of accuracy. Like one of my favorite things in baseball is if a pitcher allows a run before they allow the first out and they don't have any track record, their ERA is infinity. We know that they don't have an infinity high
Yeah.
earned run average, right? It's all about building up that track record. Generally, if a brand new agent or somebody who is new to a market, maybe they don't have a reason to believe that they have achieved any type of consistency in their business, encourage them to start with a ratio of 10 to 1. 10 leads for every one closing, right? And I know there's a lot of definitions of leads in the industry, so I want to preface this by saying I'm not representing Gary Keller or Cody Gibson or Gabby Brennan-Schultz or anybody represented by MAPS, KWI. I'm sharing a personal opinion, personal guiding point here, right? But for me, when we consider a lead, it's considered with three factors. Number one, do you have their contact information? Not just their email scribbled on the back of a waste
Napkin.
bag, right? But do you have their contact information? Is their contact information in command or your database of choice, right? Is this an official? Do they exist somewhere, right? Second question is, do they have a real estate need? Have they expressed a real estate need? One of the challenges I find in working with agents is a lot of times if the lead isn't ready right now, like they're not ready to list right now, or they're not ready to buy right now, they go away, right? I got to find somebody right now. And the fact of the matter is in the real estate industry, we call that low hanging fruit. The fact of the matter is I have spoken with very, very few agents who have any more than 10% of their overall transactions coming from low hanging fruit, right? Low hanging fruit are those gifts that come out of nowhere. Be grateful for those. However, you cannot business plan around that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Like you said, not one size fits all. Sure, you might get your license today, and then mom wants to sell her condo. See that? You guys are wrong. I'm not on a 10 to 1. I'm on a 1 to 1. It happens. That happens. Okay.
Exactly.
So
Oh,
so
let me
like
finish the third part. Sorry, let me finish. So, in order to be considered a lead, just to refresh, number one, you have to have full and complete contact information. Number two, they have to have expressed a need to buy, sell, or invest at some point in the next 12 months, 18 months, however far out you choose to track your pipeline. And then number three is that there's an informal agreement that they'll work with. I say informal because once you've reached the stage of formal agreement, well, that's a buyer agency agreement and it's a listing agreement. At that point, once you've signed them as a client, they're no longer in your pipeline. They're in your actives, right? This is your
yep.
active client, right? And so adding anyone and everyone who fits those criteria into your pipeline is one of the best ways to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. Anything short of a lead, let's not call it that. Call it a prospect, a contact, a suspect. I don't care what you call it. Let's be very clear with our language.
Yeah. And we break it down so simple for the agents that we train and coach. I mean, so you're on a 10 to 1, right? Let's just say you need 100 I'm sorry, 100 opportunities for the year. Just divide that by 12. It's going to give you a little above 8. Divide that by the week. What's that? 2? That is your job to find two people that want to buy or sell real estate. And what we find is when agents have that really easy path, they're more likely to act because it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Let me ask you this: if you had a goal of building your real estate business, how would you know at the end of the week whether you got there or not? Versus looking at a very simple. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well, I I'm going to backtrack and look at every key metric, and the keyword there is track. How many? I mean, it starts with how many conversations, how many appointments did I get, how many of those did I convert and sign into, like you just mentioned, active clients. Because without active clients, then we can't get to the next steps. It sounds, and as I'm saying this out loud with you, it just sounds so simple, right? What's the saying? It's
It's
success is simple, not easy.
simple, not easy, right? And I'm reminded of another phrase we use in coaching, which is facts aren't feelings. Or I'm sorry, feelings aren't
Yeah,
facts,
feelings aren't facts.
right?
Yep.
Feelings aren't facts, right? And so we have to have some sort of measurable way to look at progress in our business. And that's where I love tracking the pipeline. Because then it just becomes a very simple question. Hey, Bill, Your goal was to add 4 leads to your pipeline this week in order to stay on track for your goals by the end of the year. How did you do? Did you get your 4? Whether you got them or didn't get, yeah, guilty eyes, shifty. Whether that happened or not, that gives us a basis to start in coaching, to start the conversation. So if it's not leads, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is the one thing that you truly believe moves the needle more than anything else? I believe if you start tracking and paying attention to something, you will make a greater impact in your business than if you just operate based off feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dive a little bit into skill. I can always tell a skilled agent versus an agent who does not practice their skill. How could you tell? You're a good coach. You got some superpowers. How would what are some signs that you see and this agent needs some help with their skill?
I think it can show up in a lot of ways, but for me, skill equals confidence, right? When you know exactly what you need to do and you know what you're going to say and you feel confident and prepared, there's just a level of confidence that you cannot fake, right? I love using the example of, for everybody who learns how to drive a car, right? When they're 15 or 16 or whatever, wherever you are, that first time you're behind the wheel, you're petrified, right? I don't know if it was me. I mean, you would have thought that the steering wheel was on vibrate, right? Because that was me, right? And conceptually, I knew what I needed to do. However, every step was a conscious effort. Look in my ear, or look in my mirror. Look left. Look right. Brake. Gas. Turn signal. Versus, I thought about driving home yesterday, or not yesterday, last week. And have you ever had the experience where you suddenly pull up in your driveway? You were like a mile away, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're in your driveway?
We don't have driveways, but I get the analogy.
Well, okay.
I know what you mean.
Your parking
Yes,
space. You
my park
suddenly
is fine.
look up in your home and you're like, wow, what just happened? You're looking around the car. Did I hit anything? Is everything? Because you're just in your own world.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, the activity is still done. It's just about how much processing power does that activity take. You can tell when somebody has a level of skill developed, a level of confidence, because that cognitive power is significantly less when it's something you do on the regular.
yeah. Yeah, and a lot of skill building agents say are boring, quote unquote, but you and I know boring equals money, right? So maybe somebody that's listening and they're like, well, what's the first skill that I should improve or should I work on? I have a couple thoughts. I'm curious on what you think.
Listening. Listening is the number one thing. Our job is to build relationships. Part of building relationships is understanding the person on the other side, understanding what they want for their family, what they want for their futures, what their fears are, right? How can we best serve them? It's important that we know those things. And how can you possibly know those things when you're doing all the talking,
Mm, gold.
right? So learning to ask questions. It's funny. I often hear as a coach, because I work with a lot of newer coaches. I train newer coaches, and I hear from them, "Wow, how do you know just the perfect question to ask?" And the funny thing is, there's no formula to it, right? The perfect question to ask is the question that comes to your mind based off of what you just heard. That's it, right? There is no perfect question. In fact, some of the more perfect questions in the wrong context completely shut down a conversation. So it's not about having the perfect question.
Yep, which is exactly, and you know this is exactly why I don't have scripts. I don't have an agent will say like, where's the objection handlers I can memorize and study. I'm sorry, I don't have those because we teach our agents. I couldn't have said that any better myself. Listening and listening comes from asking questions. If you have to ask a question and go like this. Just if that's what you got to do to stop talking, but the best salespeople say less and listen more. So I love that.
Absolutely. I want to add to that, by the way, right? It's not scripts, it's not dialogues, it's frameworks. Frameworks create, the essence of over the course of this conversation, we need to determine these five things, right? And for anybody who thinks, well, I can't work with a framework, I don't know frameworks. Yes, you do. You do it every day. Bill, play along with me on this. Sorry, just 1 second on this, right? Have you ever gone to a restaurant? Great. When you sit down and the waiter or waitress comes up to you, what's the first thing that happens?
Hi, how are you? Can I get you a glass of water?
Okay, they take your drink order. Then what?
You guys ready?
Okay, then what?
Need a need a
Yeah, right? Then you place your order and then they come back. Is there a script that you, as the patron of that restaurant, follows?
no.
I mean, do they hand, like, when
Well,
they sit down, they hand you the menu and they say, "Here's all the things that you respond to the server with"?
no, of course not.
No, right? And yet, is it possible for us to interact in a restaurant context, knowing what needs to happen at each stage? Isn't it clear that for each party, they know what they need to do, what their
Right.
part of the interaction is, right?
Yeah, it's
It's
not
the same
push
thing in
a
real estate.
button, push a button for the response.
Exactly, exactly. It's just understanding what are the things that we need to establish expectations on. What are the things that I need to discover as your agent in order to best help you? How can I best educate you to make the best decision at this stage of your journey? That's ultimately what it is. When you follow frameworks, you don't have to remember these set of magic words that don't exist.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll see agents of wanting to memorize it, and half the time, the thing that they're going to say has nothing to do with whatever the prospect is saying. And like you said, you broke the circle of trust because you're not listening. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Finally, I want to go into mindset. Mindset's a big topic in the industry. A lot of people talk about it. Um, if somebody's listening to this and maybe they're like, I don't have a good mindset right now. Do you believe if they take action and do the activity, work on the skill, the things that you and I just talked about, do you think that their mindset would improve?
I believe so. However, I think it's sort of a chicken and egg debate. Personally, I think where it ultimately starts is you have to ask yourself why, right? Why do I want to do this, right? What does doing this thing allow me to do for myself, for my family, for my community, right? When the phone weighs 400 pounds and we don't want to make that phone call, do I have a clear connection in my mind as to why I'm going to make that phone call even though I don't want to, right? Because we have a saying in MAPS, and it was a bold law. It started as a bold law. Logic makes him think, and emotion makes him act. And I've really come to the realization of the last couple of years just how true that is, right? It's about the feeling. It's not about knowing, right? It's not about knowing what to say or what to do when it comes to a specific lead generation method. If the feeling that occurs when action is to be taken isn't correct, we won't take action. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right? So that's why mindset, I like to describe it like this. If you think about an agent's business kind of like a river, and you think about just this massive, huge boulder suddenly falls in the middle of the river, it's going to stop the flow of water. Well, for some agents, that boulder can be anything. It can be, I'm not good enough. People will see through me. I don't want to sound salesy, right? You name whatever that obstacle is. It's this giant boulder sitting in the middle of the river, and it's blocking all the water. That's where coaching comes into play. That's where we work with our clients to help identify what is that boulder? How do we blast that thing so we can get water flowing again?
Yeah, I agree. I hear those on a daily basis, pushy, and once we just move past that, it's funny. Sometimes I see that agent with the boulder in the river there, and once they take the smallest of actions, like if we have an agent that's terrified of calling their sphere, like you said earlier, I'm not going to ask you to call 500 people today. Can you start with one? And then what usually happens next. Guess what, Bill? That wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I'm okay. I was joke with them. I'm like, nobody ever died or got hurt via the phone. So you'll be okay. Good. I love that. So, you know, let's just say so, and we're kind of wrapping up here, but I would just say if somebody's watching this and maybe they are kind of feeling stuck, they heard all these things. What would you tell them? What's the first uncomfortable thing they should maybe do today?
Come back to the uncomfortable thing, but the first thing that I would say is you're not lazy. Okay, I believe the number of truly lazy agents that exist in the real estate industry is actually pretty minuscule. I think we all have various reasons why we procrastinate. We have various reasons why we justify not doing what we need to do. And then we get into this shame or guilt cycle of beating ourselves up for the actions that we didn't take. Everything that you want to have happen in your business is achievable with the right plan. So, first thing that I would say is if you don't have a coach, or you don't have a trusted mentor, or you don't have somebody who knows what they're doing, who can walk alongside you with your business, you are doing it the hard way, right? You absolutely have the right to take your laundry down to the river with one of those washboards and really scrub the heck out of your clothes. Or you can use a washing machine, right? You don't get extra points because you did it the hard way, right? Bill, I think you're going to laugh because I've used this analogy forever, right? A touchdown in football is worth how many points?
6.
A 1 yard scamper across the goal line is worth how many points?
6.
And an 80-yard Hail Mary into the touchdown is worth how many points?
6.
Which one of those conceptually might be a little bit easier to do?
1 yard tap right in.
There you go. You don't get trophies or medals for doing it harder than it needs to be.
Love that. Awesome. Matt, really good stuff. I really appreciate this. You coming on. Maybe we'll have you come on for part two. Just maybe. I think so. I think the viewers will like this. But no, really, thanks for your time today. If you guys found this valuable, please hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below. Let us know, what was your biggest takeaway from this call today. But thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.